peace and blessing, love and light. And welcome to the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. Join us as we navigate in new spaces using our mental, physical, and spiritual toolboxes to create our peaceful existence. Sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired to transition and be transformed. I am your host, Kim Martin Raymond. Let's dive into the How Now. Peace and blessings, love and light, and welcome to this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin Raymond, and I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Redefining You, LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And welcome to season 6 of the How Now podcast. This is the year of execution, and we are looking to move one step closer to that better version of ourselves. In 2025, we had a 365-day challenge where I challenged our listeners to create healthy habits that they could use mind, body, and spirit, and to place them in their mental, spiritual, and physical toolboxes. Well, this year in 2026, this is the year of execution, and we're seeing how those things that we put in our mental, physical, and spiritual toolboxes are manifesting in our lives in this new year. So if you are new to the How Now podcast, please go to my new website, kimmartinraymond.com, to find out all about my products and services, find out about my weekly segments like Tuesday, find out how you can connect to my How Now YouTube channel, and also how you can get some of this beautiful merch that we have now. We have the How Now t-shirts and mugs and things that help you to remember to be in your now. And again, that is kimmartinraymond.com. Okay? And in 2026, in this season 6, we have been focusing on 4 segments. One has been living your purpose with my co-host, JC Dorado, and he's talking about the bridge technique. He's talking about how we're taking things that are standing in our way, and we're taking that wall or that barrier, and we're creating a bridge so that way we can get to the other side of living our full and purposeful lives. Then we also have a segment on financial fitness with Leah Garcia, and she is the dynasty builder, and she talks about ways in which we can create wealth, not just for ourselves, but for our lineage, for our legacy. Okay. And then we have spirit body transformation. And that's where I talk about our physical health and nutrition and things that have taken place and transpired during my 4-year wellness journey, where I've lost over 60 pounds. And then our final segment is the segment that we'll be focusing on today with my co-host, and I'm going to bring him on in just a moment. And he's going to be talking about our 12 spiritual principles. Okay, and that is our last segment that we're talking about this year. And as is customary with the How Now podcast, I'm going to have him introduce himself at this time and talk about our topic for today. Take it away, my friend.
Well, good. Greetings, and I thank each and every one of you for being here, and thank you again, Kim, for having me on the program. As you said, I talk about the 12 spiritual principles of God, which are faith, love, strength, understanding, wisdom, power, imagination, will, order, zeal, and life. And today we're going to get into the spiritual principle of will. And will is just the rhythmic flow of God that lives within us. And when we say yes to God, we say yes to life. We say yes to our good. And so we have to be in the flow in order to experience the divine will. And there was at one point where I think that many people understood the divine will of God to be bad, let God's will be done. And many people kind of cringed. They didn't know what was going to happen. But now we are stepping into a greater awareness and knowing that whatever God's will is for us is good. At the very least, it could only be good, because the scripture tells us that the scripture says that I have made everything good and what? Very good. So the God's will can only be good for us. And our spiritual luminary is Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker was America's first female millionaires, self-made millionaires. And she was also America's first Black millionaire. So she was the first female self-made female millionaire of any race. I don't think that a lot of people know that about her. She was the first self-made millionaire of any race. And then she was also the first Black female, or the first Black millionaire. So she predated our great sister Oprah Winfrey, and she made her millions off of creating cosmetics for Black women. And a lot of her genius came through moving through hardship and pain. She had gone through losing her hair, and she went through the last vestiges of slavery. So this was a woman who came from the South. She was from Louisiana, came from the South, and was self-made in her making her millions. And she really had to endure a lot of hardship because she also lost her hair, and she created a formula to regrow her hair. Now, one of the things she said, and I want to quote from my book, Manifest Your Magnificence. I want to make sure I quote her directly. She says, success is not about how you start, but about how you finish. She also says that every setback is an opportunity to come back stronger. See, we have to begin to look at and understand that everything works in our favor, no matter how it looks, no matter how hard it may be. When we use the spiritual principle of divine will, we're able to thrive, we're able to grow, and we're able to step into our good, but we have to use the spiritual principle. And spiritual principle is just a fundamental truth of our being. So divine will is just a fundamental truth of your being. And again, when you say yes to God, you say yes to your good. Also, I want to quote her again. She also says that when she created that formula, because a lot of times divine ideas comes through what? Our thoughts, our thinking. God is always expressing itself through every avenue that it can express its good through. And so she had a dream about a formula that she used to put on her hair to regrow her hair. And she used that same formula to help other Black women during that time to regrow their hair. She says, a big Black man appeared to me. This is in a dream. A big Black man appeared to me and told me what to mix up for my hair. Some of the remedy was grown in Africa, but I sent for it, put it on my scalp, and in a few weeks, my hair was coming back in faster than it had even fallen out. So we always can receive the divine ideas of God when we step into the willingness, when we step into the yes within our being. God is always there providing the answers, providing the solutions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So she's just a spiritual blueprint that we can use to help guide our lives as we manifest divine will as we continue to go forward.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that we're talking about divine will and talking about that whole concept of God's will being done and how that's a good thing, because just like you said, some people do have that stigma of saying, oh, well, you're just saying, oh, we're just going to, we are to rest in his arms, and we are to trust that all things that he is doing is for our good. And so when
Correct.
we say our will is done, we're not throwing up our hands and saying, oh, we're just going to leave it to him and he's just going to do whatever, however he's going to do it. His ways are perfect in all ways. So
Exactly.
why would we think anything else? And that's where that human thinking comes in. And we
Right.
have to begin to say, no, we have to have a different mind shift and think of
Mhm.
things in a way, just like that little wristband that people get up there and say, what would Jesus do? Thinking about it in the ways that he would do it. But his ways are always going to be divine. And so,
Correct.
like you said, it comes with that mind shift. But again, before we go on, I want to also make sure that people are looking at the bottom of the screen as we're going along and making sure that they are following Dr. Howard and his Truth and Transformation Ministries YouTube channel. That way, that there are shows that you may have missed, you can tap in to either my website or his to be able to see what's been going on in both of our nows. And so that way you can catch up on the spiritual principles that you may have missed. Okay. And so with that, we're going to continue on. And again, thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Howard, and for taking time to go through these 12 vital spiritual steps that we're going to be able to carry through our lives as we go through our wellness journey. All right.
Yes. So she's just a spiritual blueprint that we can use, that we can follow, such that we understand what divine will looks like. And again, we have to be open to our good. We have to be willing instead of willful. That's where we get willful when we get into just that human aspect of ourselves. But when we step into the spiritual aspect of ourselves, we have to accept that spiritual aspect sees all and it knows all. And again, as I've emphasized over and over every month, is that God lives in us, through us, and as us. The Bible says that there is a spirit in man. And when you really think about it, how can God be separate and apart from his own creation? If we were made in the image and likeness of God, if we were made out of God, how could we be separate and apart from God? See, it's just like my book, Manifest Your Magnificence. My presence and how God has worked through me in this book is always going to be a part of me. No matter how many copies I make, you see, no matter where it's distributed on the planet, it's always going to be a part of who and what I am and how God has expressed itself in, through, and as me. So we have to begin to understand it works the same way with God, that we are an expression, that we are the manifestation, that we are the representation of God, and therefore we are connected to God's divine will, that we are the manifestation of God's divine will. It is God's will that you and I, or you and the viewing audience, have manifested on the planet at this particular time. If we begin to understand that from a deep spiritual understanding, we wouldn't have low self-esteem. We wouldn't reject ourselves. We wouldn't talk about ourselves negatively. See, it helps us to step into a greater awareness of self, such that we do have respect and love for ourselves as a manifestation of God. So all of this makes a difference. So I just encourage everyone that's listening to accept that the divine will of God is good for them, that at the very least, God's will is good for them. So that means that if you're thinking negatively, if you feel negatively about yourself, you are the one that's going to have to begin to transform your mind in a new direction. See, I heard someone say not too long ago that God didn't forget about them, that God went back and got them. The truth is, God didn't have to go back and get you. You were the one that needed to change your mind about who and what you are, and be able to step inside of the still small spirit, or the still small voice that lives within you. You're supposed to you're the one that has to embrace that. I heard a minister say a while ago that if God seems far away, who moved? See, it's not God's will that God should be far away.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
we all are deserving of an intimate relationship with God, and that's what spirituality does for us. Nothing wrong with religion, but religion is a vehicle to realizing our true divine connection to God. That's all that it is. It's just like if we get in our car and we drive to a certain destination, our goal is to get to arrive at the destination.
Right.
How we get there is different for all of us, meaning that the vehicle that I drive may be different than the vehicle you drive. You may be Baptist, I may be AME. You may be Christian, I may be Muslim. The vehicle that we drive to get to our destination in terms of being unified in our consciousness with God looks differently for all of us. So we can't get caught up in how other people do whatever it is that they need to do. That's the divine will in them in terms of how they express the God presence within them, meaning how they express the God presence within them through the various religious faiths. But what we need to be concerned with is, am I ultimately reaching my divine destination, realizing my oneness and completeness in God? Now, if my religion is not getting me there, then I need to find another religion. Now, that's very radical. That's very radical for some people to hear. But for a lot of people, there is a disconnect because they haven't been taught that they are one with the spirit and presence of God. See, that's all. That's the only purpose of religion. That's God. It's God's will for you to realize your oneness with the spiritual presence that lives within you.
That's right.
In God, you what? You live, you move, and you have your being. If you have no conscious awareness of that, then you're gonna come up short in your relationships. You're gonna come up short in your finances. You're gonna come up short in your health. See? And many people will say, "Well, I'm not perfect." See, but there's a spirit that is perfect that lives within you. That
Right.
you have to take that human self and connect it to your divine self. So we really put more emphasis on being human than realizing that we are spirit beings first.
That's right.
See, we wouldn't even be able to we wouldn't even have manifested into this incarnation as a human being if the spirit hadn't preceded us. So we are in this physical space. We are a human being, but we also are spirit, and spirit always precedes the human form. So we have to begin to reorient ourselves to a new way of understanding. So again, it is God's will for us to step into the intimacy of who and what we are as spirit.
Yes. Yes. And one thing that resonates in what you've spoken about so far is the fact that sometimes we do tend to we distance ourselves from him, and he is omnipresent. He's always there, And we tend to distance ourselves. And I think sometimes it's in the words that we use too, because we know that words have power. It's
Right.
sometimes when we say, oh, well, he's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
We always say he's coming back one day. And so for some people in their thought process, it's like, oh, he's coming back one day. So that means he's left us. He's gone. He's over there somewhere. He's up
Mm-hmm.
yonder somewhere, instead of realizing that he exists within us. And again, that's
Exactly.
where we have to change that way of thinking, and to realize that what we're working on, and as we're going through our spiritual journey, it's establishing or reestablishing that relationship, that oneness with him. He says that he left a comforter with
Right.
us, in us. And that's what we think. But we always tend to think there's some type of distance. The only distance that's created, as you said, is the distance that we create.
Correct.
Not that, just like you said, we are here in spirit first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been established first.
Right.
The person who carried us, our mother who carried us in their bodies, that was the vessel that was used, but the connection and that spiritual connection was made. It wasn't like it was
Mm-hmm.
never there. That preceded our human form, just like you said, before we even got here. And it's definitely, having that mind shift, being
Mm-hmm.
able to say that, okay, I need to connect to reestablish that connection. I love that every month when we're talking about our spiritual principles, that we talk about God lives in us, through us, and as us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that if those who have been listening throughout the year, that is one of the key aspects that we talk about, that God is in us, lives in us, through us, and as us. And
Yeah.
as we begin to embrace that, then we begin to see the power that comes with that realization of who he is in us, as us, and through us. So I love
Yeah.
that.
And a lot of people are upset, at right now in terms of this political environment that we live in. And it is testing us, but I think it's testing us for the greater good, so that we step into a more expansive awareness of who and what God is. And so it's God's will for us to really understand and know, as the scripture says, greater is he that is within me than he who is in the world. See, if we really caught hold to the will of God and began to say yes to that, we wouldn't be crying so much, and we wouldn't be moaning and groaning so much about the political environment in which we live. We would find ourselves, through the will of God, overcoming the negativity that we're being faced with.
Right.
It's very important that we understand and know that the will of God works in us, through us, and as us. And as we say yes to the Spirit, we wouldn't be faced with so much that we experience in the exterior world. We wouldn't be faced with so much in terms of, I'll take even joblessness. Really, in truth, there is no unemployment in God. So when we begin to say yes to God, we won't find ourselves in a space where we are jobless or unemployed. See, we've been programmed to believe if somebody doesn't make a job, then I don't have a job. And see, that's why Madam C.J. Walker is so important at this particular time, because she used the creative genius that was within her, which was the divine will. So that was nothing when I read the passage about the man that she had the dream about, and he was telling her what to mix up within her for her hair formula.
Right.
That was really the divine will being activated within her. It came through what? A dream.
Yeah.
See, because she was on some level, she was beginning to do what? Opening up. She said that the man appeared to her in a dream, and he told her the formula that she needed to mix for her hair. Now think if she had not followed. She just had the dream and she just woke up the next day and she said, well, that was just a dream. That wasn't anything. That's what many of us do.
That's
That
right.
we have to pay attention because God is always communicating its will 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It could even come through a dream. Everything that manifests in our world is God expressing itself. And we have to understand and realize how to read the code. It's very important for us to really understand and know that God works through what? Divine thought, through divine ideas. And as we execute the thought, the idea, we step into the will, the good will that God has for us. So, this political environment, I'll go back to this, the political environment that we're living in, we could easily overcome that by stepping into the true and divine nature that lives within us. Again, greater is He that is within me than what? He who is in the world. So it's when you really think about it, there's no reason to be worried. It's no reason to be upset. There's no reason to be frustrated. We're going to have to realize also that it's nothing wrong with voting. Voting is good, but we're going to have to do more than vote. See, we're going to have to begin to use our dollars, our monies wisely. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have to financially pool our money together. Then we're going to have to begin to do a lot of different things in order to continue to thrive, in order to continue to grow, in order to continue to develop.
Yes.
We can't just focus on one thing. Oh, well, it's about getting your education. Oh, it's about voting. Oh, it's about getting as much money as you can. It's about all of it. And we have to be as broad-minded because what? God is broad. God works in various ways. The divine will work in the various ways if you say yes to it. That's where we get caught up because we think God can only work in one way. And God has various ways that it works. So, again, Madam C.J. Walker, she just opened her mind to the will of God. That's all that her story was really all about, is her being open to the will of God, just saying, yes, I'm open. Yes, I can envision myself as a millionaires and I'm just coming out of slavery. See, we have to begin to allow you can what? You can have as far as you can see. See, and the will of God will allow you to see some things that you've never done before. But what happens is we get so set in how we see ourselves. We see ourselves in a very fixed, very one-dimensional ways. We don't see ourselves in a broad way. That's not God's will for our lives. God's will for our lives allows us to see ourselves in the most broadest way possible. And for her to become a millionaire, for Madam C.J. Walker to become a millionaire in the early 20th century in 1906 was an amazing and extraordinary feat. Because most people would have said, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? See, and that's what most of our friends will tell us when we start dreaming and we begin to see, we begin to connect to the will of God that's deep within us, and we begin to see ourselves different. And then if we begin to speak it and tell somebody, they'll tell us how it can't work. That's why we have to be, that's why when we have creative ideas that come through us from the will of God, when we begin to have a creative idea, we have to keep it within ourselves. It's almost just like when a woman gives birth to a baby or when she's pregnant. That baby does not come out until or manifest itself until it's fully developed.
That's right.
So sometimes we have to keep things very private within ourselves. Remember, the Bible says, do not cast your pearls before swine. It's not calling people out of their name, but it's just saying, do not begin to cast what you are developing before people who have low states of awareness, low states of consciousness that don't appreciate expanded ideas. We got to work with it. We got to work, and everybody. And it's not that people are bad. It's just that because they don't see themselves being all that they can be, they will project negativity onto you. I can't see it for myself, so I definitely don't see you doing it. So we have to be careful about who's around us, who are our friends, and who is truly, going to support us in our efforts. We have to be mindful of all of that as we move forward in faith.
If we're looking for it to come a certain way, we'll never see it.
Exactly.
And it's a matter of, okay, and just like you said with Madam C.J. Walker and it being a dream, she could have dismissed it. How many things have we been exposed to, and we just said, it's nothing, because it's so amazing what we've been conditioned to believe and what we've been conditioned to process. And if it doesn't fit in this exact box or in this specific category, then we begin to question it, and we all say, oh, well, no, I'm not going to walk away. I'm going to walk away from it. I'm going to shy away from it because it's not something that I understand. Mm-hmm. And we have to realize that there are so many things. There's only such a small portion of our brain that's actually being activated. And when we live in that small little compartment that we're stunting our growth. We're stunting our ability to bring forth the things that he has shown us because of fear, or because of resistance. And like you said, we have to get to that space of saying, okay, obedience, I'm saying yes to the will of God. This may not be something that I understand, but what does the Bible tell us? Not to lean unto our own understanding.
Right.
So there may be things that we're not seeing in a way that we're supposed to see. And then it doesn't help, like you said, when we share it with someone else and then they just go ahead and say, that's going to work. They just sit there and they pop that little balloon that you've been blowing up. And then we go away from it. And we have to be able to fight for our yes.
Yeah.
And to be able to say that, no, this came to me. Think about Noah and the ark. The angels came there. No, I'm not going to do that. What if he didn't?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying? We're changing, the results of things. It's always going to be his will. His will is always going to be perfect. But when we come in and we begin to change things and twist things around, that's within us. It's not him changing. It's us changing. And just like that's where that mind frame comes in. Okay, we learning a lot here, people.
And you brought up resistance. It makes me also think about Harriet Tubman. And she offered the invitation to freedom for a lot of people that were on the plantation.
That's right.
But because many people resisted, because they said no. See, it was just like God is saying, freedom is yours. It was saying it through the vessel of Harriet Tubman. The freedom is yours. You can leave the plantation. But because people got encapsulated in their own human will,
right,
they said no. See, and they made and primarily they said no because of the fear factor. Fear will blind you. Fear will keep you in bondage. And in that case, it kept them in both what? Mental, emotional, and physical bondage. All because they were unwilling, here we go again, unwilling instead of willing, unwilling to say yes. See, and there are many people that are still on the plantation
Amen.
of their mind because they are resistant to moving. They are resistant to saying yes. They are resistant to doing anything differently. They are resistant primarily because they are paralyzed in fear. And so
Yeah.
we have to, we have constantly, and myself included, have to constantly work on ourselves. And this is what? A spiritual practice. You've got to practice this,
That's right.
your spirituality. You've got to practice the awareness that God works in all aspects of your life. You got to, it takes practice to realize that. And then the more that you practice, the more that you will be willing to say yes to God, the more willing you will become. But the less you practice, the more rigid you are. It's kind of like our bodies. When we don't move our bodies, they become what? More rigid. But the
That's right.
more that we move them, the more flexible
That's
they
right.
become,
That's
the
right.
less pain that we have. See,
Right.
but we have to be willing continuously to move toward the spiritual presence that lives in us, through us, and as
Amen.
us. I want to,
That's right.
while we're on that note, I have another quote that I want to read by Madam C.J. Walker. And it talks about how she's basically how she used her divine will in order to move forward. So she said, I am a woman that came from the cotton fields of the South. I was promoted from there to the wash tub. Then I was promoted to the cook in the kitchen. And from there, I promoted myself into the business of manufacturing hair goods and preparations. Everybody told me I was making a mistake by going into this business, but I know how to grow hair just as well as I know how to grow cotton.
Mm. Mm.
See, because she opened herself up to do something that the spirit was pressing on her to do. She knew it within herself. That was the divine will, that was the divine presence within her saying, this is good stuff, receive it. See, and people around her, what did she say? Everybody told me I was making a mistake. That's why you can't listen to other people. That was not the divine will for her. See, if she had followed the will of other people, we wouldn't know who she is today.
That's right.
You have to follow the divine will within you. And it's okay to be different. It's okay to look different. It's okay to act differently. See, that's what we need. We need to be what? Settled uniquely into our authentic self. Our authentic self is our spiritual self. And when you're following your authentic self, you're following the will of God. And that means that you're not gonna look like everybody else. You're not gonna be like everybody else. See, if you like everybody else, you're gonna have the same hell everybody else has.
That's right.
So it's important for us to realize and know who and what we are. She followed what? The will of God within her. That's all that she really saying. And she had to do what? She had to promote herself. She said she went from what? She came from the cotton fields and she promoted herself from there. Then she went went into the kitchen. She promoted herself from there. And from the kitchen, she promoted herself into the business of developing hair care products and cosmetics, which was revolutionary
Yes.
at the time.
Right.
See, this was very revolution, and we have to begin to see ourselves more from a more spiritual revolutionary standpoint. See, if we begin to see ourselves from a more spiritual revolutionary standpoint, which is the will of God for us, we wouldn't be crying and whining and moaning and groaning about what's going on in the political environment. See, because all of what's going on in the political environment would be neutralized. Think about if everybody came forward, followed the will of God within them, and followed their divine mission and purpose on the planet. Would you and I be mentally and emotionally and physically oppressed? See, nothing stops what? A well made up mind. Your mind has to be well made up in the will of God. And again, we've got to get out of the programming that God's will for us is negative. So we've been taught that. Oh, well, it's God's will for me that I have this sickness. No, the reason you have that sickness is because you thought negatively, and then you probably overate, or you didn't exercise, you didn't drink enough water. That's you and your stuff. That's not God's will for you. See, it's God's will for you to what? Radiate health and wellness. And if you cooperate with your body temple and give it what it needs, you'll radiate wellness. Your body is what? The temple of the Holy Spirit. That's God's will for you.
Right.
I came that you might have life, and that you might have it what? More abundantly.
That's right.
If you're supposed to experience the abundant life that Jesus talked about, then why are you broke? So we have to ask ourselves, not in an accusatory way, but we have to begin to question ourselves in terms of where we are, and if it's where we are in our mind and our heart and soul is not a positive place, well, then that just means that I have to transform my mind. I have to change my mind about who and what I am. I have to begin to move toward something that's new and different instead of staying stuck in a place that's not good for me, because many of us are stuck in the muck and the mire. It's not God's will for you to be stuck. If you really examine it, there is no such thing as being stuck if you realize and know who you are in God.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Because like you said, there's power in movement.
There's power.
Just like you said, she moved from the cotton fields into the kitchen. All of these things that she's going through, just reiterate the fact that there's a process that takes place.
Right.
When we're walking in obedience, there's movement in that. There's a trajectory that comes with that. And we're moving in a direction, and those things that we're gleaning as we're moving and growing and going are going to help us to be able to manifest that thing, just like she was able to manifest those products. There may have been things that she learned in that cotton field, things that she learned in that kitchen that also helped to help her to be able to design and create those hair care products. All of those things happened. There was a progression, and she took those steps forward. She didn't just say, "Well, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to go straight into hair care, and it's just going to happen." Those opportunities may not have afforded themselves had she not moved in that direction. And so like I said, there is power in movement, and just in listening to her story and to talk about luminaries, people who embody those things, we can then begin to make that connection as well and say, okay, I see. It's a process. That's why it is a journey. That's why it is something that continues. It's not something that ends.
Right. I want to share a personal story. We're operating in real time. My phone just fell. But I want to share a story. Just recently, I was accepted into Emory's Candler School of Divinity.
Oh, nice.
And I'll be working over the next couple of years on another master's degree and another doctorate. So I'm very excited about that. But I was told about this opportunity from another minister, maybe about a year and a half ago. Now here we go. With my human self. Initially, when I heard the thought, I was like, well, I'm not going to apply for it because it'll take so many years, and I'll be thus and so age when I when I complete it. But then I began to think about it.
Right.
And I began to realize I'm going to turn whatever age anyway if I plan to be here. So what difference does it make when I finish?
Right.
Nevertheless, I've gotten accepted, and it just proved to me that you have to open yourself to the divine will of God at all turns, at every point, no matter what age you are, no
That's
matter
right.
who you think you are in life, no matter how much you've accomplished, there's always room for more. And when we
That's right.
open up ourselves to the divine will of God, the goodness of God comes in and it blesses us. It was also a full circle moment in two ways. I got the information that I had been accepted to Emory on my father's birthday.
Oh, wow.
And my father is already passed on to the other
Okay.
side. So it just also lets you know that the ancestors are
Yes.
always working on your behalf.
Yes.
See, I,
Yes.
I I didn't know that I was going to get the news of all days on his birthday. The other thing that I didn't really think about until um, I really processed it was years ago when I graduated from high school. Um, I applied to Emory. Emory was the only school that I did not get accepted in graduating from high school. But now, almost 40 years later, 38 years later, it has come back around
Yes.
to a full circle moment, and God has fixed it up better than I could because they're offering me a scholarship.
Oh, beautiful. Look at him. Look at that.
See, but we have to do what? We have to go with the flow of God. And when if we just try to look at our lives, as you said earlier, just through a human lens, we won't see the full picture.
You want?
We have to be able to see our lives actively moving through the will of God through what? A spiritual eye.
Yes.
See, we can see all if we take our human eye and merge it with what? The spiritual eye.
That's right. That's right. And we're never going to see things the same way. I can't put on your glasses and see things the way you see them, and you can't put on mine and see things.
Right.
You're going to be like, "Whoo, that's how you see things," and I'm going to say the same thing about yours.
Yeah.
But it is like you said, there's a lens that we're looking through, and we have to trust that lens that we're seeing through because we're going to see the clarity that someone else may not.
Right.
So and there are so many things. Like you said, it's never too late. It's
It-
never too late. The stories that we read in the Bible, where
mm,
people, she was too old to have a child, and look what that child came and did.
mhm.
Look what that child's legacy led to. There are so many things that we have to, change when we're thinking. We have to think on a higher level.
Yeah.
We're so limited in our human thoughts.
Mhm.
We have to be
Mhm.
able to reach and stretch beyond that. And like you said,
Mhm.
start seeing things not just through this physical eye, but through that spiritual eye as well. And let that magnify those things that are, set out for us.
Exactly. Yeah. We
Wow.
never you help me to understand something more. You're never too old to birth new ideas, new concepts, new things that have never been done before. You'd say, but we get caught up. We
That's
get
right.
caught up, and age is not I mean, in God, you really age less.
That's
There
right.
is no age. There is no time in God. God cuts cross time and space. See,
That's right.
in human form, we just get caught up in time and fixed, but we have to begin to understand. I was even reading a study that says that people who meditate more
Mm,
slow their aging process. See, and I think that it slows because when you meditate, you step into a space that's beyond space and time.
that's right.
See,
That's right.
nobody ever really told us that. See?
That's right.
But if you just get caught in the human, aspect of who and what you are only, you limit yourself,
That's right.
as you just said.
Yes, yes. Like I said, the power of divine will. You know, these wonderful spiritual principles that we're going through as we've gone through 8 of the 12 so far have been so powerful. And my prayer is that people go back and listen to the episodes that you missed, and also just begin to open your mind and begin to walk in these spirituals and use those luminaries as a guide
Yes.
to see and to learn a little bit about their stories and begin to apply them. The purpose of these spiritual principles is to give us that blueprint, is to give us that framework that's going to help us to get to that space of developing that divine relationship, so that again God is in us, as us, and through, and he lives in us, as us, and through us. And that's something that's going to be a continual process. So I for these, for sharing these and for highlighting those luminaries as we're going through this process, because it is something that's going to continue to manifest. So before we wrap things up, give us some more insight into this divine will, and some things that we can carry for us as we're going into, the remainder of our week and the remainder of our lives.
Okay. Well, one of the things is, I would say, just making it very simple, very plain, is to just continuously say yes to the God presence that's within you. If you're able to position yourself to say yes, just as Madam C.J. Walker did with that dream coming forth. On some level, she realized that that was the divine will within her, telling her what she needed to do. And because she said yes, she was thrusted forward and became a millionaire. Now, the outcome was her being a millionaire, but I want to emphasize that it was really her whole story also reflects that she recognized her own inner wealth.
Right.
When you recognize your own inner wealth, you can't do anything but manifest more exterior wealth, more abundance, more joy, more financial wealth. When you recognize the inner wealth, the inner treasure that's within you. And again, Jesus said, what? These and great things shall you do also, and that the kingdom of heaven, what? Lives within you. So if the kingdom of heaven lives within you, or is within you, if the kingdom of heaven is within you, that means that you already have all the joy, all the peace, all the financial prosperity, all the good health, everything that you could desire and what you want, you already have it.
That's
But see,
right.
we've been waiting. We've been taught that we got to wait to get to a place known as heaven, when he said you already have it. If you go back and study the teachings of Jesus, he never referred to as heaven as a place far off in the distance. See, and it's God's will for you. It's God's will for you to know heaven right here and right now. My kingdom shall come on what? Earth as it is in heaven. My kingdom shall what? Come. My kingdom shall come on earth as it is in heaven. That means it's got to start right here.
That's right.
It's got to start right here with me, right where I am. Right where I am, God is. I've got to start right here and right now, because right now is where the point of power really is. So the will, going back to your question, the will, when we think about will, we just need to be opening ourselves up
That's
to a
right.
divine yes.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
we can just say yes, God will continuously reveal itself to us. The scripture also tells us the more you move toward God, God comes closer to you. That's what the scripture says. We've
That's
got to
right.
move. We got to open ourselves up.
And we have to have that fluidity. We have to have
Yeah.
that mobility, that movement.
Yes.
And just like movement helps our physical body, movement in the spirit helps our spiritual bodies to move as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to create that flow and to create that ultimate relationship that we want to have with source, God, whatever you choose to call him. You
Right.
know, we want
Yeah.
that to be at the forefront. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I thank you so much for sharing this spiritual principle on divine will. I want to also remind my listeners to please make sure that you're following along the bottom of the screen. You'll also see in the description as the show airs to follow Dr. Howard in his Truth and Transformation Ministries. Go to his YouTube channel. Make sure that you like, follow, share, and subscribe so that you can, and also click the notification bell that you can be a part of his sermon that he shares every Sunday. Always looking forward to that. I'm on there most Sundays myself and engaging in the teachings. And so these are powerful things that we in our spiritual toolbox that are going to help us in our physical and mental toolboxes as well, because they all intersect and interconnect at some point. Those are things that are helping us to get to that better version of ourselves. And also be sure to go to my YouTube channel, How Now Podcast 2391, and also go to my new website, KimMartinRaymond.com, so that you always know what's going on in the now. Okay, so again, thank you, Dr. Howard, for being here and for helping us with this, continue in our spiritual walk. And as we continue to go through these spiritual principles, be sure to stay tuned again so that you always know what's happening in the now. Any other parting words before we go?
My only parting word is continuously say yes to the spiritual presence within you.
All right. And that'll do it for this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. And until we see you all the next time, I stay peace.